Thor Ragnarok is potentially the funniest movie in the MCU. That's a line that you've probably heard hundreds or thousands of times. And honestly, after finally watching it, I can see why. It's pretty fucking hilarious. For me, my favorite part of the entire movie was Korg. Up until the very end of the movie, I didn't even realize that Korg's voice was Taika Waititi. And I think I've decided Korg is my favorite non-human-like character in the MCU. When I say that, I basically mean the characters that are clearly like a different form. They don't even resemble humans. So I think I like Korg more than Groot and more than Rocket. Now, once we get outside of the MCU, I don't know if I like him more than King Shark. But my point is, thanks to characters like Korg and like Rocket and like Groot, those characters are almost always the comic relief characters. And I think Marvel does a really great job with those types of characters specifically. They incorporate them in a way where you really like them, but they're not just using them for like cheesy one-liners or throwaway lines. Anyway, let's talk about this movie. So you guys know me, I absolutely loved Doctor Strange. That movie has actually grown on me the most out of all the superhero movies that I've seen. That one has really stuck with me and made me think about it a lot. And I really loved that Doctor Strange was in this movie, and I thought when him and Thor met, the scene where he's like teleporting around was really funny. And as I was watching, the biggest note that I wrote in my phone, I literally put 4 asterisks next to it, guys. So that clearly means I thought it was a big deal. But every single scene in this movie feels crucial to the overall storyline. Every single scene makes progress and ties into the bigger picture. It didn't feel like there was a single scene that like could have or should have been cut from the movie, and I think that in and of itself is really impressive. I really feel that Thor Ragnarok never slows down. It never has any lulls of like, oh, you know, that one part got a little boring. It just is continuous momentum the entire time. I feel like I have to mention the get help scene. I thought it was hilarious. Obviously most of you guys watching this have probably seen it, but basically Thor and Loki are in an elevator together, and it's a really like wholesome moment. And then as they're leaving the elevator, they decide to do this thing called get help, which when I was watching, I didn't really understand what they were talking about until it happened. Essentially, Thor and Loki walk out of this elevator, and since they're clearly targets, they just do this skit where they're like, oh my God, get help, someone help my brother. And then he quite literally chucks Loki at like 3 or 4 guards and takes him out. And relating to that, I thought all the action was super fun. Something I mentioned in a lot of my Avengers reviews on TikTok was that I thought Thor's scenes always kind of stole the show. Like they were always way cooler than other people in my opinion. And so obviously in Thor Ragnarok, they were fucking awesome. In terms of the themes and underlying messages of the story, I absolutely loved the idea that Asgard is not a place, it is a people, and that anywhere could be Asgard. I think that is so powerful that, you know, this group of people, their value doesn't lie in like a particular land or setting. It's like the ideology, the people that they're surrounded by and the beliefs that they hold. And that's pretty amazing and really important in a universe like this one where there are huge external threats and there's a possibility that this planet could be entirely wiped out. But that doesn't matter because Asgard will remain, because Asgard is the people, not the place. I also think this film does a phenomenal job of tying so many things back together. It's really impressive. Like obviously the Avengers are kind of known for that. At least in my opinion, that's a large reason why people like the Avengers movies, is because there's so many callbacks, there's so many tie-ins, there's so many storylines that if you've kept up, you'll understand all these little minute references. And in this movie, it has a ton of that as well. For example, at the start of the movie, Thor is chained up and he's basically a prisoner to, oh shit, I don't know his name. He's this big fiery demon guy thing. His name doesn't matter. What matters is that they start the movie introducing you to that character, and at the end of the movie, he comes back into play to help them out. There's actually a line where Loki says, with the eternal flame, you are reborn. And he sets like the helmet or whatever it is. Is it considered a helmet that thing has on its head? Regardless, it's just cool that literally like every single detail of this movie was not only used at one point, but also referred to at a later point as well. Another example of that is the Executioner, who was like the guard, the bald guard of the portal thing. He had these assault rifles, and there's a scene where he's like showing these off to the girls of Asgard or whatever. And then in the final battle of the film, he basically sacrifices himself to fight off this horde. And there's this epic shot where he's like dual wielding these ARs, and he's just mowing down these hordes of zombie things rushing him. And I thought it was great because I literally made a conscious note. I was like, oh my God, like that's cool, because those ARs are now like a focus of this moment in the film, and I understand now why they were a big part of the film earlier. To a lot of people, that's probably something that doesn't even matter. It's just like you notice it maybe, or you just think it's cool, but you don't really realize that all of that stuff is intentional. Like, you have to remember that these filmmakers, they spend months or years writing these scripts, planning out like the choreography, the set design, what they're gonna wear, what they're gonna look like, how they're gonna sound. There's so many variables, and just to me, when I see something that I know is intentional and it works well, it really impresses me because I can just imagine how much time and thought went into that. Obviously, Loki is great. I love the relationship between Thor and Loki. I'm actually about to start watching the show Loki right now. Needless to say, I'm really excited about that. But as I was watching, I actually did have a question, and I was like, I didn't really understand why Loki ended up helping his brother. Why didn't he just betray him again? But thankfully, some of you guys clarified for me in the comments of the TikTok video. You said essentially, Loki wants acceptance. He wants to be who he is and accepted for that, even though, you know, he's kind of a piece of shit. And in the elevator scene that I referenced earlier, Thor finally accepted that. He accepted Loki for who he is, and now that Loki finally received that affirmation, he was willing to help Thor because that's all he ever wanted. He just probably didn't really know how to portray that very well. Portray? I don't know what the correct word to use there. I think convey is a better word. So that's an example of a little thing that as I'm watching through these movies for the first time, I realized that details like that I didn't understand as I'm watching, if I were to go back and rewatch a second time, I think I would gather a lot more and understand a lot more of like the depth. Because if I didn't have people answering questions like that for me in the comments, I would have just left the theater like not really understanding why Loki helped him, but just accepting the fact that he did just because the writers made it that way. So yeah, I mean, overall, the movie is pretty fantastic. It did not make my top 10 favorite superhero movies, but it was definitely close. I'm actually going to do a video where I rank all 100 of the movies from 100 to 1. And I assure you it's near the top, just not quite the top 10. But yeah, everyone crushed their performances. Don't really have a whole lot of complaints, if any. I gave the film a 9.2 out of 10 on TikTok, and I'm going to stick with that here. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below, letting me know what you thought of Thor Ragnarok. And I hear there's a new Thor movie coming out in 2022, maybe? So if you guys are excited for that, let me know as well. Anyways, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're new. Tell your friends about the channel. Thank you so much for supporting. These videos are really fun to make, and I'm happy that you guys enjoy watching them. I'm gonna go record my Black Panther video, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. Peace.